Hello, ladies and gentlemen. In my last video, I talked about Karl Marx and the Communist Manifesto. I also discussed ideologies related to communism. Now let's fast forward to the early 1900s here. George Orwell was born in 1903 in Britain. Keep in mind, Britain was not a socialist country. Orwell grew up believing in socialism and fought for the socialists during the Spanish Civil War between 1936 to 1939. So keep in mind, he went over to Spain in a civil war that took place and fought for the socialist side in the Spanish Civil War. Now, socialism comes from similar ideology, it comes from the ideology of communism, where it doesn't have this idea or this gap between rich and poor. What Orwell saw, however, in the Spanish Civil War from 1936 to 1939 changed his approach on communism. He never liked capitalism, the society that we live in, because remember, it created this gap between the rich and the poor, the bourgeoisie and the proletariats. But what he came to see from totalitarian governments, what I mean by a totalitarian government, a government that controls society. What he saw during this time irked him to his bone and made him change his belief. He saw what was happening with the Stalin regime in Russia, and this heavily concerned Orwell and what he was ultimately fighting for in Spain. Orwell suggests that communism is great on paper. He says that it eliminates homelessness. It allows for everyone to contribute to society. Everyone's going to have food, so you don't have people hungry on the streets. But Orwell writes Animal Farm to warn future generations about totalitarian governments and how when governments are given too much power, much like what he saw in Soviet Russia, they are bound to abuse it. Ultimately, this eliminates freedom. And he says that with these totalitarian governments, like what we saw with the Nazis, what we see with Stalin, a lot of communist governments revolve around become totalitarian governments because they have too much power. They control the rations of food. They control the land which people live on. And ultimately, because inherently the people are humanly greedy, freedom is eliminated. And this is not an ideal society at all. Now, the reoccurring quotation that comes up in Animal Farm is all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. So really, are we all equal in society?